back again after a long hiatus. It is CFB Paint. I am your host, Steve, and we're back. It's trivia night. Now, I have to give the listeners some behind the scenes here. We actually technically recorded a separate trivia night in the past, and I wrote the questions, and apparently I went ham because it was very difficult, very challenging, which I think I teased in previous episodes. So if you're looking forward to a hard trivia night, I don't know if you're going to quite get that tonight. I've tried to scale her back, tried to water it down just a little bit, make it a little bit more palatable for the rest of the crew. But here we are to do Trivia Night Take 2. Now, for those that maybe like really challenging trivia, pay attention to our YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/CFBPaint. I will be putting those as shorts for individual questions with a question, hint, and then ultimately the answer, so you can pause if you're looking to think through the question and maybe analyze what you think might be the correct answer. And if you need a little help, you'll be able to hit play. There's a hint. And finally, you can hit play once more, and we'll give you the answer to those trivia questions. And that's actually the same format we're going to do tonight. Again, with that previous recorded episode, they were so difficult. We didn't keep score. We didn't have teams or anything like that. We're going to do that same process tonight, mostly because I didn't have time to kind of organize how that would work. So we're all going to do it. You're all going to participate all at once. And I think this should be relatively painless compared to the previous recording. And maybe for our listeners, if you donate something to us, we might give you access to that recording because it's pretty rough.
For our listeners, I was the one that really struggled more than anybody else, I feel like.
Well, if you happen to know all the left-handed coaches on the 2003 LSU staff, then you're in good shape. It wasn't quite that hard, but it was tough.
And full disclosure, there are some hard ones here, but the difference is that we've incorporated that hint. So the way that this will work is I'll ask a question. You'll have the opportunity to answer it without any help or assistance from what I've prepared. If that is not possible and you need a hint, we'll go on to the hint. Now, there are some that are, I think, on the level of easy, or it'd be too obvious for me to give a hint. So there are some in here where the hint is, hey, best wishes, or things like that. Some words of encouragement, but no actual assistance. So we'll see how that goes. Let's jump right into it. Okay, hang on. There we go. First question. Tennessee had a great passing offense this past year, a bunch of long bombs. Do you know who Tennessee's all-time career passing yards leader is?
Manning is the first one that jumps to mind. I don't know, Corey and Mark, if that's...
I don't think he was around long enough. Who is... I've got a picture of somebody in my head, number 14, just in this last decade, who played for them for 5 years. What's that guy's name?
Not to pretend.
Odds is what I want to say, or something. It's a fairly short last name. Golly, who is that guy?
I'm just trying to think in my head, who are some quarterbacks I would know? Manning, Hendon Hooker had a great year. What about T. Martin?
No. Well, no. Yes, it could be.
Could be.
I just really feel confident in this answer. I just can't come up with the name. And Steven's grinning like
Number
I'm
14. That's a good answer, Steve or Mark.
He has alopecia, Mark, if that helps.
That's not good.
Is it Dodd?
Yeah, Dobbs.
That's it, yeah.
So is that y'all's answer? I was just talking specifically to Mark, so I wasn't saying he was correct. Let me make that clear.
Oh, I thought you were saying that's who Mark is thinking of.
That's my answer is Dobbs.
I trust Mark over me. Let's do Dobbs.
I'm going T. Martin.
He was just there for 6 years. He has to.
Yeah, he was there.
Okay. We'll go to the hint because I think you guys will get it after this. The hint, he's nicknamed the Sheriff. He had the best SNL skit about volunteering with United Way and would be a convincing mascot for both of the NFL teams he played for.
I love how we overthought this one very, very
Let's
too
just
much.
listen to me next time. It's Peyton Manning.
Yeah. Dude,
Okay,
that
it
skit
is Peyton
incredible.
Manning. I love that skit. I think it's so funny. Oh, man.
If you haven't seen it, stop this and go watch that for a second, then come back.
And then come back. Andy Samberg, I remember at one point Peyton was doing an interview about this, and Andy Samberg, he was telling him, he's like, man, I just don't know this. He's like, believe me, it's so out of character for you. That's what makes it funny. just trust us. Like, we're professionally funny. And then he did it, and it's like, oh yeah, he was absolutely right. Like, I think Andy Samberg was one of the people that really took charge on writing that.
But also, to Peyton Manning's like credit, he is hysterical in himself. Like, he's pretty dang funny,
absolutely.
And he's great at like just deadpanning a face, and be like, take me serious,
Yeah, he's been also he's host. And I think he's done an Oscar skit. Like, they've used him a lot, and there's a reason that the Manning cast has become so popular on Monday nights.
Kayla and I like the College Bowl series, the trivia series that him and Cooper host, and the whole family is just hilarious. I mean, they're a terrific combo. We need more Cooper Manning in our life. That's what we're missing.
One last comedy thing about the Mannings, specifically about Peyton. He participated in the Comedy Central roast of Rob Lowe. Not his skit, but Jimmy Carr's roast of him is actually really funny. So check that out. Just search that on YouTube. You'll get a pretty good laugh. Jimmy Carr in general is just one of my favorite comedians. If you got the stomach for him, because he's pretty. There's not a whole lot he won't say. Let's put it that way. All right, question number 2. Speaking of the Mannings, Arch Manning is enrolled at Texas and lost the starting QB job this spring. I had to just rewrite this earlier today because previously it was like, oh, he's battling for it as I was compiling these. But now Sark's made it official that Quinn Ewers is the starting QB. Who was the last true freshman to start a game at quarterback for Texas?
I want to say it was recent, too. Was it Casey Thompson?
I'm going back to Vince Young, but my Texas QB knowledge is limited. Didn't Vince play as a true freshman?
I don't think he started the season, but he might have started a game. This is just the start of game. But it'd be hard for me to imagine, because didn't Ellinger get a game as a freshman?
Yeah, I think Ellinger did.
So Casey Thompson would be more recent if he did.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I thought Casey Thompson might have gotten in. Did you say true freshman? Yeah,
true freshman, not redshirt.
So, was he a true freshman? Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with you, Brian, and Sam.
I'm going Vince Young.
I think it's more recent than Vince Young, but I'll look like an idiot if not. So
Vince Young is 20 years, so it probably more recent than Vince Young, but that's who I'll stick with.
Are we ready?
Yeah. Both Sam Ellinger.
Here's the hint. His inconsistent play may have been a big factor in Tom Herman not working out long-term at Texas. Brian is on fire right now. It was Sam Ellinger. Vince Young redshirted his first year. Yeah, so he started a couple of games as a redshirt freshman. I don't think he started the whole season. And then his redshirt sophomore year was when he won the Heisman and they won the national championship.
Not to mention he was 30 by the time Sam Ellinger rolled around too. So,
hey, just want you to know, Steve, I also got that one right because I got swayed by Brian.
Yeah, I'm just credit to the team. Great job.
He's got 2-0 though.
But if we're keeping score, I'm 0-2.
Yeah, exactly. Y'all can keep your own scores if you want. I don't have a way of doing that while also running the presentation. So, all right, third question. Lincoln Riley, before becoming a head coach, was a star offensive coordinator. Who was the last USC head coach, not an interim, to be a defensive coach primarily?
Going not in the history of USC have they ever thought a defensive coordinator or a defensive coach was useful.
Well, Seattle head coach Pete Carroll is the latest back, right? Because he's a DB's guy.
Defensive. He's a defensive coach. But
so you go anybody since him.
Who's since him? I know Lane Kiffin. You have Clay Helton. You have Sark. Yeah. That was who I was going to go to. So Pete Carroll. But I'm trying to think of anybody that was after him. Who was the immediate guy right after Pete Carroll? Was it Kiffin?
I couldn't tell you.
No, it couldn't be Kiffin. I'm with Brian. I think it's Pete Carroll.
I'll go Pete Carroll.
That's the only name I can come up with at the time, that's for sure.
Are we in agreement on that?
Yeah, I think we are.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll jump to the hint. He's a way more successful head coach on the West Coast than he is on the East Coast, both in college and in the NFL. Y'all are right. It's Pete Carroll. He was fired by the Jets after 1 year in 1994. rehabbed his image in 95 and 96 as a defensive coordinator with the San Francisco 49ers, then got the Patriots job, was fired after 3 seasons, went to Southern Cal, won a title there, has been at the Seahawks ever since, and has won a Super Bowl. So, good job.
Brian, you are on fire, dude.
Brian's out here crushing it.
If we had not got there, would that hint have been helpful to anybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
I knew Pete Carroll was on both sides.
Yeah.
I would have never been able to tell you that.
Sorry, I skipped this part, but check out this awesome turtleneck he's wearing underneath his polo. He used to do that, and I was just like, I know we talked about like what coaches like apparel vibe would you do? I don't know. The long sleeves underneath the short sleeve polo of his is like an interesting look, and definitely like it hails right from the mid to early 2000s. But just, oh man, what an era!
That sounds like an early high school Brian look. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Didn't he always have the underarm on?
When you were early in high school, for me it was 3rd, 4th, and a little bit of 5th grade. Yeah, for sure. Every cool kid, if you were a decent athlete at all, you wore Under Armour to school underneath your T-shirt or whatever the heck you wanted to wear that day.
All right,
I was never a decent athlete, so I don't know what it's like.
Or you were at least old enough to know that was a stupid thing to do.
Yeah,
next question.
Trudging around in Doc Martens. All right, we'll let you go, Steve.
All right. Next question. Wisconsin brought in Luke Fickell, who in turn hired Phil Longo to run the offense and figures to pass the ball more. Who is the current single-season passing leader at Wisconsin?
Russell Wilson.
That was my immediate thought, too. I'm trying to think of the last guy who they had who could actually sling it, and he's certainly...
Yeah, I'm going Wilson 100%.
Okay. All right. The hint was first major QB to transfer.
Yeah,
yes, you're absolutely right. It was Russell Wilson. I still think, like, what happens if Tom O'Brien doesn't say, oh, no, we're actually okay with, oh, goodness, now I'm blanking on his name. Not Sean Glennon, Mike Glennon, his younger brother. Mike Glennon's our starting quarterback moving forward because you wanted someone to commit to the football program. Like, man, what happens? Because in turn, he doesn't do that well. Tom O'Brien's fired, and I don't think he's ever resurfaced. I think he just said, I'll call it a career. Anyway, that was just a really fun. That was the first major transfer, and since then things have gotten crazier and crazier, and now transfer portal. It's nonstop.
Yeah, 51 people from Colorado in the last 2-3 days.
Woo! It's a lot.
Yeah,
at least they get a
population of boulders going down by the minute.
But they'll get to play both ways, which will be fun.
Yeah, there you go. All right, next question. How many of the last 5 Heisman Trophy winners were transfers? Speaking of transfers.
Ooh, okay. Caleb Williams is one. Bryce Young, not a transfer.
He did not transfer.
Joe Burrow, 2019 is a transfer.
Yeah, Joe Burrow.
Would have been 2020.
Kyler Murray.
Devonta Freeman.
Did Murray transfer? I can't remember if he started.
No. If Baker's in this though, he's one. I just think he is. No, he's not. Murray would be 18.
Yeah, Devonta or the receiver from Alabama.
Yeah, Devontae Smith.
Yeah, Devonta Smith.
Yeah, Devontae Smith, Bryce Young, Burrow, and
Caleb Williams and
Caleb Williams. Yeah, so that's only 2. That's what I think.
What, did you do 5 or was that just 4?
No, he got 5. Smith, Burrow, Williams, Murray, and
so it's 3. Yeah, Murray, Williams, and
Murray. Did Murray transfer?
Yes, he had to transfer.
No, he went to Oklahoma. I think he went straight from because he was a Allen, Texas kid. I think he went straight to Oklahoma out of high school.
I think that's right because I remember him as a true freshman. His first play as a true freshman on that team was a 75-yard touchdown run. Baker got checked out of a game for something, got knocked out, or was he suspended a game for something? Anyways,
I don't know anything that clearly. That was really impressive. But
pretty sure Murray ripped off like a 75-yard touchdown run on his first snap. Anyway, so I don't think he transferred. So we'd go Burrow and Williams.
Yeah, I think 3. So. Go 2. Corey goes 3.
Okay, I are y'all getting that? Oh, sorry. I don't know what happened there. Couple things here. I just realized that I did not include the most recent season. So, like, this it will change the answer. I think you're all right mostly. I had the hint was 2 resurfaced in the Sooner State because if I go back 5 years, not including this past season, I'm getting Baker on there as well.
Oh, Corey's right.
So Corey was right. It is 3, but these are not the right 3 because I didn't include Caleb Williams. Sorry. So that's a mistake on my part. So Caleb would obviously be one, and then Baker would drop off. But if you're looking at from 2021 through 2017, you get Baker, who transferred from Texas Tech to Oklahoma, Kyler Murray, who then was A&M to Oklahoma. You're right, Mark. He did do that. It was his redshirt freshman season after he transferred. And then Joe Burrow,
the memory you have,
from Ohio State to LSU.
Like, you can be like, oh, this player did this play with this person is unreal to me. Like, I don't understand how that all clicks and how that stays in your mind.
Like that one, yeah, just, I mean, same way that Mark, I remember he just made a huge splash play and it was like, oh, that's what they have there. I also remember it because, like, at the time, Kevin Sumlin was the head coach at Texas A&M. He got 5-star quarterback Kyle Allen and then 5-star quarterback Kyler Murray in consecutive high school classes. And then both of them transferred out in the same summer. Like, oh, whenever you're bleeding 5-star quarterbacks, I don't think the future is going to be kind to you after that happens. And both of them have had, obviously Kyler Murray, maybe isn't a superstar at the NFL level, but he's playing pretty well. Like, I mean, nothing to sneer at, and made a bunch of money doing it. Kyle Allen's still in the pros. Like, both those guys are fine. Anyway, just thought that was interesting. So, like, I guess if you look at 3 of the last 6 years, then correct me if I'm wrong, or 4 of the last 6 are transfer quarterbacks or transfers that have won the Heisman Trophy. So it's just kind of interesting that's like, man, for whatever reason, it didn't work out somewhere, but then it works out beautifully somewhere else.
Or it worked out in both places, like for Caleb Williams.
That's true. He's the exception, not the rule here.
For sure.
I do think, though, like, if you listen to the Bud Elliott talking, he's like making the quarterback call in spring and fall and knowing which quarterback to actually start is like insanely hard, and people miss it more often than they get it right, is what he kind of says a little bit. And this is kind of proving that's the case. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think that some of it also is development. I mean, Joe Burrow was not good his first year at LSU. He wasn't. And then he got in the right system, and I think he just got better. And now, as a pro, he's a fantastic quarterback once again. So I think some of it's just growth. But you're right. Like, people get it wrong all the time. I mean, Max Duggan, who was a Heisman QB finalist, lost the job in fall camp at TCU this past season. Only got in because
he got hurt, right?
Yeah, because Chandler Morris, is that then?
Yeah, Chandler Morris.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he's expecting to start from them this year, right?
Yes.
But they just picked up a transfer quarterback as well, too. Can't think of who it is off the top of my head, but
yeah, they got Chance Nolan from Oregon State.
There you go.
So that is what you're looking for. There is a serviceable backup who will be a great offensive coordinator for some team in about 5 years.
There you go.
Question: what was the last conference that South Carolina won in football?
This isn't going to win us any fans in South Carolina.
Don't care.
I'm going to guess it's not the SEC. Otherwise, this likely wouldn't be a question.
I don't know the history of South Carolina and what conference they were in. I'm going to go the Metro is what I'm going to guess.
Metro.
I don't
wonder if they're one of these teams that there are a few that like are former ACC. The ACC is not that old though. Like I'm what year do you think they joined the SEC?
I mean, if they were the ACC, we would have seen them in Garnet and Gold, that Florida State video we watched growing up. FSU would have eventually played them, and they would have called that out.
They are in that
FSU
video.
didn't move to the ACC until 91.
Yeah, but also FSU beats them in a.
Are they in that movie?
Yeah, we have a movie from like the first 50 years of FSU having a football program. We watch it all the time. We go like 1947 to 1997 or something like that. In my head, yes, they're in that movie. I could be wrong, but I think that's like 70s or
Got no clue.
maybe Bill Peterson days. Corey's going Metro. I'm gonna go ACC. I'm gonna say they used to be in the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Okay, are we ready to move forward?
Mark?
What's Mark's answer?
Give me the Big East.
Okay, here's your hint. There isn't a hint. Good luck is what the hint says for those reading. I really would encourage you to come back and look at some of the pictures that we have in here because they're pretty solid. It was the ACC. It was in 1949.
Wow.
It's funny. You guys are like, well, Florida State didn't join the ACC until 91. Is it 91 or is it 92? I can't remember the year, but it's the same year that South Carolina leaves for the SEC. So they didn't actually have any conference overlap. I like the Metro throwback, Corey. I was like, oh man, maybe they were in that conference. But the last one that they won was the ACC in 1949. So
I'll look it up and see if they were ever in it.
Good call. While you pull that up, we'll move on to the next one. Oh, by the way, South Carolina, I don't think your next conference championship is coming in 2023. Just a hunch. Next question. Who owns the single game passing yards record? Wow, poor writing on my part. Just record, singular, for FBS football.
All right, I know who my initial guess is, but it's the only name I can come up with. I'm going to go Pat Mahomes. I feel like he had a massive game, but I think there was a game earlier this year. I don't even know if it was this year, but I feel like it's going to be like one of those, small schools, Tulsa or SMU, somebody who just had like a 700-yard performance. And there was a massive one earlier this year, I think, but I can't remember if that was passing yards or total offense. Since I can't come up with any of those small school quarterback names, I'm going to go Pat Mahomes.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of
these. I
these.
think it's a small school, but I don't think it's Pat Mahomes. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head.
The two names that jump out to me, because I think about like who are these quarterbacks who put up like super gaudy numbers but played for garbage teams, and I think Colt Brennan at Hawaii.
That was the name I was actually thinking was Colt Brennan.
But I don't think it's. I think if I had to choose one of these, small school, I think Case Keenum might be. I know he put up unbelievable, just like career passing yards. So the chances he had a game that was really big are there. That would probably be my guess, but I don't know.
Yeah, I want to say the kid who rewrote the record books at Western Kentucky this last year. For like the year, but I can't think of. I'm going to go Colt Brennan. I think that's the right call for some reason. Oh, and by the way, they were invited to join the Metro in '76, but turned it down in hopes of joining the SEC. Or the ACC. Sorry.
Nice, good to know. Are we ready to move forward on this?
Yeah.
Okay, so the hint, I'll give you a hint. First of all, it's technically two people. I said who owns. It's shared by two. The first person I don't think you're gonna get. The second one is a State Farm spokesperson who also has a famous love of ketchup.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark, good job. Very good job.
Yeah. So
Pat
Pat Mahomes,
707 yards or something like that. It is a
734. 734.
Yeah.
Connor Halliday, who was Washington State's quarterback in 2014, set the record, and it was then tied by Pat Mahomes at Texas Tech on October 22nd. I don't remember who the opponent was.
Yeah, I was going to ask that, but
this
we'll
is
follow that up.
Dobbs redemption answer is.
All right, let's go to another one. Which player won the Doug Walker Award for the nation's best running back in the? It says 2018-2019 season. Sorry, I should have edited this. He won it in consecutive years. He won it in 2018 and again in 2019.
That's got to be Jonathan Taylor, right? Am I getting my years right?
Jonathan.
He's after Zeke and I don't know who were the Doug Walker.
He played for Wisconsin. That's right, Ryan. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I think that's a good answer. I'm trying to think. Zeke only had one big year. Alabama
When did Saquon?
point.
Did Saquon just have one big year?
Yeah,
By the way,
even
the
his
last game that you're talking about was against Oklahoma, and they lost.
On losing effort. How much would that hurt? Like, 734 yards. Like, what else can I do?
66-59. Baker Mayfield threw for 545 yards and 7 touchdowns. I think you're probably.
I'm gonna
My
stick
mind
with
doesn't go-
Taylor.
Yeah,
That's my
my
best
mind's not
guess.
good at placing time frames. Who won the championship this year? Or like those 2 years? We're looking at-
19 would have been LSU. 18 would have been. Was that a Clemson year? I think it was.
I think it's
I want to say
Clemson.
they won 16 and 18 for their years.
I think you're right, Brian. All
Luke
right.
Walker.
Yeah, I like the
The
answer.
hint, he played at a university that we referenced
It's in Luke.
earlier in Trivia Night.
Nice, Brian.
So
Okay.
it's him.
All right. Jonathan Taylor was the guy. Brian's he's on fire. You're white hot, but remember the Wheel of Fortune. She's fickle. All right. Next question. Miami and Texas A&M are set to face off in week 2. This is the end of the home and home. What is Jimbo Fisher's record as a head coach versus the Hurricanes?
Well,
He went undefeated with Florida State.
Is that right? Never lost to him at Florida State?
He never lost to them and never lost to Florida until the
he
very
lost
end.
a single rivalry game, and I can't. Was it to Florida or was it to? He was 9-1 at Florida State against his rivals. Did he lose to Miami? Or did he lose to UF? I don't remember.
I think the Jarman Fortson year was under Jimbo. The Jarman Fortson drop it twice in the end zone.
He probably was OC then.
Let's see.
I don't think his head coach when Jarman was there.
No, let's see. It would have been.
I know for a fact
over
that
2011 or
he
2010.
started 8-0 against the. I know for a fact he started 8-0 against
Yeah,
rivals.
he finished
Okay.
his career, I think, 9-1. He
And
started.
so I'm guessing.
Split the
The
one.
question is, did he ever play him when he was at no? Yeah, so I'm going. Has he lost to him at Texas A&M yet?
No.
Last year they won, right?
Last year.
Yeah, I'm
So
going 6-0, 5-0. How long is he at Florida State? I'm going 5-0.
I'm trying to remember that rivalry loss. Who first beat Jimbo at FSU? And I can't come up with that loss. I don't remember if it was UF or if it's.
11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I think he's 7-0. I'm going to go 7-0.
I'm gonna go 6-0 because I think UF is the one who beat him.
You ready?
I'm gonna go 7-0 with Corey.
Okay. Here's your hint. Y'all got this one. Y'all actually don't got this one. He was 8-1, 7-1 at Florida State, and is currently 1-0 at A&M. So he lost in his final year to the University of Miami. If you'll remember, James Blackman was this is DeAndre Francois gets injured in 2016 against Alabama. 2017, excuse me. 2017 against Alabama, first game of the season. And that season goes off the rails, right? Like there was a chance that team was only down by 3 at halftime to Bama, could have been tied with it was 10-7. I think 10-7 at half, and they had that blocked field goal, but there really was a missed pass interference that would have given them first and goal with about 30 seconds left in that Alabama game. But after that, the wheels kind of come off because he's starting a true freshman in James Blackman. They lose to NC State. They lose to a couple others. This game, James Blackman looks like the real deal. And his counterpart on the other side, I believe it was Malik Rozier, but I could be wrong. It could have been, I think it was Malik Rozier. Could have been, gosh, who was their other court? Steven someone or other. I can't remember his last name. Stephen Morris. But I'm pretty sure it was Malik Rozier. And he beats Travaris McFadden on that back shoulder throw, where on the throw it looks like McFadden should pick the ball, and he doesn't. Yeah, this is Cam Akers' coming out party where he had that hit on Sheldrick Redwine on the sideline.
I don't
Google
remember
that one for our family or for our listeners. If you want to see like an amazing running back finishing a play at the sideline, there's an awesome one. Cam Akers obviously in the league for a reason now.
Cam Akers also was the king of I'm gonna intentionally step out of bounds, and I know it. I know I stepped out of bounds, so you're gonna stop, and then I'm gonna drill you and act like I didn't know I just stepped out of bounds, because that's what happens on that play. And I I fault the DB only a little bit. Like, you should have been wiser to, like, this guy might come and do this, but he reuses that one several times over the years so he can finish strong, get a good lick in, and send a message to the secondary of, you want to come hit me, you have to get hit.
Oh yeah. Also, yeah, just Jimbo Fisher is that person when it comes to playing rivalry. So I kind of hope he's around for when Texas joins the SEC so that we can see that game with him in it, because he brings his A game with rivals. 8-1 against Miami, obviously 7-1 when they were a major rival at Florida State. Never lost to the Gators, not once, and has the best quote about that. Just beating the dang Gators. I'm editing that. But yeah, let's see if he can continue and take it to 9-1 in week 2 of this upcoming season. All right. You would bet yes? I am. That one's going to be an interesting game. I really don't know. I really don't know what to think. Here's your next question. In 2014, the Big 12 debuted the One True Champion tagline. Now, at the time, they only had 10 members and could not do a conference championship game because the rules were such. Who were the co-champions in 2014 in the Big 12 that caused the college football world to point out the irony in their name that they had one true champion, but did not, in fact, have a single champion?
Was K-State one of them? I believe K-State was part of this. I'm going to go OU and K-State off the bat.
OU is the only one I can confirm because they were in the playoff that year. I think they lost to the Cardell Jones, Alabama Crimson Tide. I might have that wrong, but
the Big 12 doesn't make the playoffs for the first little while.
Do they not? So they're not in
No.
2014. I'm getting my years mixed up.
2014.
I'm going to go with you on.
Oh yeah, it's 2016. Cardell, or he's 15.
It's OU for sure. And then I'm going to go with I think K-State always seems to have their number. I think that's a good call, Mark.
It's K-State or Baylor, I think. But 2014, that would have been for the playoff that year would have been Alabama and Ohio State, Florida State, and Oregon.
Oregon, yeah, you're right.
So Corey's right; they're not in there. That's the only one I can remember because it was such a painful playoff.
Y'all want the hint?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm locking in K-State and OU.
Yeah, I'm good with Mark's picks and Corey's picks, to be fair.
Okay. Do we want to hang on a second to see if Corey rejoins, or?
He'll be back in. We can keep going.
Okay. We'll go ahead. Okay, the hint is one of the two had a chance at a playoff, but a lack of championship game may have cost them a spot. And if you'll remember, I actually talked about this in our season. Their last game, they won 55-7, were ranked 4 in the playoff rankings, and then after a week of inactivity, didn't play in conference championship week, and they end up being moved out.
Yeah, who was that? I forgot about that until you just mentioned that right now. I don't remember who that was, though.
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
Could be Baylor.
I'll tell you.
To be fair,
it was TCU that gets they were the ones that got, in my opinion, screwed out of a playoff spot.
I mean, to be fair, they get moved out for Ohio State, who ends up as the champion, right?
Doesn't matter to me. To me, like, the fact that they won it doesn't mean that they deserved it.
Moved out by Ohio State, correct?
What?
I'm not asking for your opinion. I'm asking they got moved out for Ohio State.
That part is correct, but like I was saying, like everyone used that as they got it right because Ohio State won. That has nothing to do with what happened. Ohio State got a chance. They took advantage of it. Good for them. Excellent job. But that doesn't mean that they deserved it. Ohio State that year lost at home to Virginia Tech by 14 points. You know, TCU lost by 1 point to Baylor. Baylor also only had one loss, but it was to West Virginia. Or maybe had 2 losses. I might have that mixed up. That one I'm a little less clear on. But a much, like, worse or a much better loss, if you will, like in that it was a much more well thought of opponent. on the road, I think, or if it was at home again, it was a much closer loss than a 14-point loss to a Virginia Tech team that was not any good. I think that Virginia Tech team ended up going like 7-5.
To be fair, a Virginia Tech team that has not been good in 20 years.
Yeah, yeah. But then Baylor was the other part of that, and it was just like I just thought it was hilarious. This one true champion. The first year they debut that, and they're like, "Oh, we actually don't have a true champion."
2 true champions.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. Who's the coach of the last Pac-12 college football playoff team?
Peterson. I think Washington's the last one, right?
It's the last one I got.
And Chris Peterson was still coaching them then?
You've said Washington's in the playoff a couple times to me. I don't recall that in the playoffs. I know that they for sure were. Oregon was in there in 15, 14?
2016 or 17.
Oregon's in the first one. Washington's in. Gosh, I'm forgetting the year. But they make one. That much I'm confident of. I just couldn't tell you who their head coach was at the time. And I'm thinking it might be Peterson.
That's what I'd go with.
I'm going with
Really Taggart.
I'm going with Taggart. I don't know if he was coaching Oregon at the time, but why not?
Was it?
I don't know if I have a hint for this one. I believe in you.
Is that a we got it wrong?
I remember I wrote these before you said answers, so like I can't go back and change my hints. So
well, I understand, but like
no, most of you are right.
Okay.
It is Chris Peterson. Washington made it in 2016. Jake Browning was their quarterback, if you'll remember. He was their quarterback for 4 years. Who else was on that team? Was Myles Gaskin on that team? I think he was. And John Ross, the speedster, on the outside. And then they got blasted. Yeah. Sorry, I know we have a couple of Washington fans. They didn't look great in their playoff appearance. To be fair, Florida State did not look good in its only playoff appearance as well. So, anyway, yeah, it's been since 2016 since the Pac-12 team got into the playoff. Do we see one this year?
The thing is that you have several teams that have the potential, but the problem is they have the most like quality at the top of their conference. So like if you look at the SEC, you're thinking, okay, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Tennessee. Like at max, there's like 4 teams, and you can always. I shouldn't say at max because none of us saw TCU coming this last year, but the more cluster you have at the top, where you have Oregon, Washington, Utah, USC, potential for UCLA to mess up some things, Oregon State to mess up some things, Washington State. Like I feel like they have just enough people to beat up on each other that I don't see it happening this year, but it's not for lack of a quality team. It's just there isn't that extension where you have a couple teams that are clearly ahead above the rest.
Yeah, I don't think they have that same that distance between tiers. I think they're tier 1 and tier 2. The gap is not super wide, and that's where it may end up tripping them up.
Well, and I think their tier 1 is also 5 teams deep instead of 2 teams deep, which makes it a problem.
That's true. That's true.
I feel like I only got this half right because I would have definitely gotten Washington and the year and not been able to identify their coach at all. So, good job, Brian.
By my unofficial count is kind of killing this. He's doing
it helps to get to an early lead because then you just forget everything and then you just remember what happened at the beginning. So,
all right, next question. Who are the last 2 Heisman Trophy winners from Group of 5 schools? And I'm using Group of 5 as of this past season.
The Houston guy, quarterback. He's the commentator now.
Andre Ware?
There you go. And
this is killing me. This has got to be real far back because I'm.
And BYU quarterback.
Detmer.
Those are my 2 answers. You get how I can't remember any names, but I'm like that guy.
We know who you're talking about.
They're not Group of 5.
Yeah, that's true.
Or else you'd go pull Notre Dame into these answers too.
Well, there
I
you
think
go.
there's a line in the sand there, Mark, where even though they're both independent, they are kind of viewed differently.
Are you counting them as group of 5?
Yes.
Okay. So, was there anybody from Notre Dame before that or after that? I don't think so.
Oh, Notre Dame. No, I'm not counting them as group of 5. I'm counting BYU as group of 5.
He was just making up what these things are now.
Well, everyone would have said group of 5 as of last year, even for BYU.
They just said
Yeah,
independent.
no, that's fair.
Yeah.
They
I
would
can't
say
think of anyone
independent, but
else.
they're kind of a group of 5 independent. It's like UMass or UConn. Not comparing the programs. Let me make that clear. But
I mean, they're not that different, but
no, BYU had said 2 10-win seasons in the last 3 years. So
joking.
I'm good with Corey's answers. I can't
Yeah.
think of anyone else.
I mean, clearly Ty Detmer's in there. If Steve's like, I'm definitely counting group of 5 here, and Andre Ware won the Heisman. What was that, 91? Which is after Detmer, so that's got to be the answers.
yeah, the hint is they won in back-to-back seasons, and then both schools for the winners of these winners as of the 2023 seasons will be Power 5 schools. And so, yes, it's Ty Detmer
Well done,
in
Corey.
90,
Good call.
Andre Ware in 91. You nailed that one, Corey. Great job. I thought that one might be a little bit harder. Corey was on that one right from the word go.
Yeah, he had the wisdom to just let me just think back any of them who've won it. I'm sitting here going trying to count back in order, and would have taken a long time to get there.
You ready for the next one? This one I think is a fun one. How many BCS/New Year's Six games has Boise State appeared in?
Yeah, 2 or 3. I'm right with you, Corey. I don't know what the answer is. 2 or 3.
For listeners, Corey is on mute consoling a child, and he has indicated that his answer is 3.
Oh, gosh. I can't come up with them, but I feel like he's right. I mean, obviously, 2006, Boise, Oklahoma.
Oh, we got 2 fathers here holding children now.
Should I go
Look at
get one?
this. Yeah, you should go get one. I can't. Mine's gone.
Sheila will like it, but I'll go get her. Boise played Oklahoma. I want to say there's a Boise, Alabama game. And I think I'm missing one. I'm going 3 with Corey.
Okay.
Brian, you got anything? Corey's going 3.
No, I can only think of 2006 and 2009. Those
Who's
ones I'm pretty confident in.
2009? Who'd they play?
2009, I don't remember, but they go undefeated that year.
All right. Brian's going. So you're going 2? Brian's going 2. Corey's going 3. I'm going 3.
Okay. All right. Brian, your luck's run out. Couldn't think of a hint that wouldn't give this one away. This was one where I was like, how do I give a hint here? They have all three Fiesta Bowls, all 3 victories. They are 3-0 in the Fiesta Bowl. They show up there, they know they're coming home with a win. They played Oklahoma in 2006. Obviously, that's the most famous of them. In 2009, it was a crime because we got a G5 versus G5 game in TCU and Boise State. They didn't get to show how they measured up against other teams of those Power 5 conferences. Again, TCU at the time was in the Mountain West. And then 2014, they played against Arizona. Rich Rod had that program, kind of got it right back to where it needed to be. I think that's not Khalil Tate being the starting quarterback, is it? I don't know that. That part I'm not sure of. But they beat Arizona 38-30, I believe, was the score of that one. But yeah, Boise State, when they show up in those big bowl games, they come to play.
Just shows you that it's better to be lucky than good because there's not an Alabama game in those 3 games.
Yeah. When you're like they played Alabama, it's like no, but they would have been roasted if they had.
Arizona starts with an A, ends with an A. That's probably what I was thinking.
Yeah. All right. Next question, and Mark, you might be on your own here as people are working with
They can't do
upset children. Okay, which team has won the most Pac-12 titles in the last 10 years?
All right. Knee-jerk reaction, Utah, because they've got the last 2. So Now, I have to ask the question, Steve, did you include this year or did you start a year early?
Yes, no, I included this year on this one. It's a fair question.
Right. Oregon has a bunch. I would think you would have Washington, who's going to have at least one. Oregon would have had certainly their 2014 year, probably the 2015 year, probably the 2013 year as well. Not the 15. I don't know about the 15.
Yeah, you had Mariota there. You had Oregon doing well before Utah started taking dominance lately. I've got to say it's got to be Oregon. That's my thought process off that. I couldn't tell you specific years.
I think Utah's only got 2 or 3. That doesn't feel like enough. I mean, they have the last 2, and there might be one before that, but I don't know if there's a lot more before that. I don't think it's SC. They've basically sucked for the last decade. Washington, I'm going to go Oregon. I don't think Washington has enough.
Okay, we locked in with that, everyone. Cool. So the hint is that they accomplished it with 2 different head coaches, which I think would eliminate some of those other potential
Utah would
ones.
be eliminated.
Utah's out because Witt has been there forever. It is Oregon. They won 1 under Mark Helfrich in 2014. In 2013, it was Stanford. That was that little pocket of time, if you remember, Corey, when Stanford just had Oregon's number, where like that physical brand of football that Stanford was playing. David Shaw was their head coach, and they also found ways to win. There's like an insane one with an onside kick. There's some really fun Stanford Oregon matchups from like the 2011 to like 2015 window. Helfrich only wins in 14. He doesn't win the next year. Things go downhill for Helfrich fast, if you'll remember after that. Like he goes to that championship game. I think the next season they're 7-5. The next year they're 4-8, and he's fired. Like he really kind of just coasted off of what he had done and some of the recruiting that had existed prior to Chip Kelly moving to the NFL. He was the one that brought in a bunch of transfer quarterbacks, kept trying to do like the 1-year rentals. He did the Vernon Adams from Eastern Washington, and it was kind of meh. And then I can't remember the next year they did the same thing. I think it was another Eastern Washington quarterback. It was like, these guys aren't working. Stop doing this. Like,
which coach was it that did that?
Mark Helfrich.
Oh, he's the one that did that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. And that's why I was like, I know they go kind of downhill for a little bit. I didn't realize Cristobal won 2, though.
Cristobal won 2. He won the 2 most recent that Utah hasn't won. So, yeah. And one of those was pretty fortunate. The 2021, they shouldn't have been in the game, but Washington had COVID issues and couldn't play in the Pac-12 championship game in the 2020 season. So that one to me is a really cheap one. Like that one didn't. They were Pac-12 champions with a 4-3 record. So
it seems odd not to just crown the other team the champion. You know, like other guy can't show up, then you're the champ. I feel like that should have been how it went down.
Yeah, exactly. All right. We're, I think, starting to wrap up here. I think I've got a couple more. Who won SEC Defensive Player of the Year the last 2 years?
Will Anderson Jr.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
is this the same person or is this 2 separate answers?
It's the same person. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be Will Anderson.
Yep, gotta be.
Yeah, likely to be one of the top defensive selections in the NFL draft tomorrow. It is Will Anderson. I didn't put the junior. Also, did he really deserve it this last year? I don't really think so. I think he had an awesome year.
Both had better years than him this last year.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, his like down year is like, I only had 10 sacks and 17 tackles for loss. Like,
well, I think his pressure numbers were pretty unbelievable this year too. So I mean, I think he had a lot of those that were. I'm not necessarily arguing, but the ones that necessarily don't show up in the stat sheet were pretty good for him this year. But
I just remember he had some key penalties that should have cost him the Texas game. Like,
oh, no doubt.
He had one of the worst games of his career then. Granted, the whole team kind of did, but him especially. Anyway, he's going to be a fantastic pro.
I feel like he faced a ton of double teams too, though, this year. Because he was already on the radar.
Yeah, I mean, but he also had Dallas Turner on the other end. Like you couldn't really identify one or the other to really kind of always double up because they're both that good. But I hear you on that. Like, it's hard to live up to what he did in 2021. I just felt like that more felt like a lifetime achievement award for him than actually winning it this last season. One man's opinion. Okay. Who was the last SEC Offensive Player of the Year to not win a Heisman Trophy while still in school?
So you're saying they could win it, they win Offensive Player of the Year, and then might have won the Heisman before or win it later while they're in
Right.
school.
It didn't have to be in the same year. Although I think it is over the last several.
Who won this last year? SEC Offensive Player of the Year.
The way Steven's phrasing the question, it must have been Bryce that won it this year. But I would have thought Hendon Hooker probably would have won it this year.
Yeah, him or
would have been for.
Maybe Hyatt. Even Quinshon Judkins had like infinity yards running this year. Yeah, I don't think he won anything, but my goodness.
I'm going to go with... Who's the Alabama quarterback last year? Not last year, but the year before. This is also Bryce Young?
Mac Jones.
No,
there's no way
Jones not 2 years
he wouldn't have won it because Devontae Smith was on that team. He wouldn't have won Offensive Player of the Year. I don't think.
Fine, I'll go Mac Jones. I think they didn't give it because Devontae Smith didn't show up till like the very end of the season. Is he on? Is Mac Jones on?
You'd be voting on Offensive Player of the Year the same or with the same like information you'd be voting on the Heisman with, right?
Yeah, but voting for the Offensive Player of the Year wraps up, I think, earlier than Heisman does.
I'm gonna go with Hooker. I'm gonna say it's real recent. I'm gonna go with Hendon Hooker.
I'm gonna go. Help me here, Brian, on timelines because sometimes I say things and you're like, "That's 2004," and I'm like, "Man, that felt like yesterday." When? Oh, that's gonna be 10 years. Well, it's not gonna be more than 10 years ago. I'm gonna say this is a longer term, and it's Marcus Lattimore. That would have been about 10 years, right? 10, 9.
He's the running back for South Carolina?
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets knocked out by 2010.
Oh, that's going to be too far, isn't that? That's going to be 11 or 12 years ago.
Yeah, that's 2010, 2011, 2009 maybe.
I was thinking that might be 12 or 14. So probably not that far. All right, I won't belabor this much longer. This is one I want to stew on, but I'll go Jalen Hyatt.
Can I change my answer real quick from Hendon Hooker? I'm gonna go Tua.
Wow, that's probably right.
Okay, you guys ready?
Yeah.
4 of the 5 have also won the Heisman. He's the only one to not. It's Hendon Hooker. He shouldn't have changed, Brian. Just stay with your gut.
That's what I get.
The last 5 or 4 of the last 5. So you've got in those years. So you have Hendon Hooker in 2022, Bryce Young in 21, who won the Heisman that year, Devontae Smith in 20, who won the Heisman that year, Joe Burrow, who won the Heisman that year. And then we got Tua. Did Tua not win the Heisman?
No.
Maybe I got the number right. Or I got the number wrong in terms of the 4 or 5. Sorry, it's 3 of the last 4. But Hendon Hooker, this past season, won Offensive Player of the Year and hadn't. It's staggering. Basically, if you win this, you're in really good. You've got a really strong chance at winning the Heisman Trophy. To give you a few more back, Tua wins it in 2018. Kerryon Johnson was the running back for Auburn that won it in 2017. 2016, Jalen Hurts. 2015, Derrick Henry, who won the Heisman. 2014, Amari Cooper. 13, Trey Mason, again, Heisman runner-up. 2012, Manziel, who won the Heisman. Trent Richardson was the next one. I think he was 3rd in the Heisman voting that year, but I don't remember that exactly. Then Cam Newton. You're in good company if you're winning SEC Offensive Player of the Year. I think
somehow Hendon Hooker didn't make it to New York last year.
He blew his knee.
Ridiculous, though. He still, I think, had more than enough resume to make it there. Totally agree.
All right, next question. We're coming up on where we want to be in terms of time, so let's move. Who was the last team not named Michigan or Ohio State to win the Big Ten championship?
Whiskey.
Probably Michigan State.
Oh yeah, maybe
Oh, that's a
When would that
good.
have been though?
like
They made the playoff one year.
yeah,
Yeah,
somewhere in
yeah, and
there.
they beat Ohio State in the championship game. And I think this is what I want to say. That's what 2015, 2016. That's what I'm saying.
They're in the same division,
Yeah, they wouldn't have had to play. They would probably got to play
Oh,
Penn State
Wisconsin
like
or
everybody else
Purdue,
does.
or I think your team's right though. I would
Yeah,
jump on with Corey and say
you're
yeah.
Michigan
right.
And
State.
actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking it's got to be closer to yeah 2015, 2016 sometime. That's what I'm thinking.
Are we good on that?
Yeah, locked in
Yeah.
Michigan State.
Okay. No hint on this one. Again, couldn't think of something that would be. Just give it away. It's actually Penn State in 2016.
Wow.
They won kind of. This is a Saquon Barkley, Trent McSorley year, or Trace McSorley, excuse me, not Trent. Trace McSorley year. They lose in the Rose Bowl to Sam Darnold, who leads a comeback, and I think that's what solidifies. I might be getting the year wrong on this, but I think that's kind of gives. Maybe he was already the head coach. He must have already been the head coach. Sorry, I'm gonna walk that back. I was thinking it was Clay Helton, but I think it certainly solidified him as the head coach because I think they won the Pac-12 championship that year. Um, but Penn State does it then. What you're thinking of with the Michigan State, you're right. They do. They make the playoff. It's 2015. They win. There's a last second. There's a goal line play against Iowa in the Big Ten championship game, and that go watch that play again because the Michigan State running back gets stopped at first and has an awesome second effort to get in the end zone and win the game. Oh, I'm blanking on his name. He was so fun to watch, and that game was a pretty fun one to watch. And it also like this is where I put my tinfoil hat on because that was the 4-5 matchup, and I was convinced that like I again I don't actually think in conspiracy theories, but back then I was convinced like when Michigan State wins that game, they beat number 4 Iowa, or they're number 4 and they beat number 5 Iowa. I can't remember. They're both right there. It's basically winning you're in for whoever won that game. But they vault them into the 3 spot, giving giving them to Alabama in the semi rather than having Alabama play Clemson in the first matchup and then Oklahoma potentially in the second one. Or maybe I'm getting that backwards. Like Bama is 2, and I think it's Clemson and Oklahoma play in the 1-4. Clemson and Oklahoma play in the 1-4 game, and then Michigan State plays against Alabama in the 2 and 3 game. And just matchup wise, they played similar brands of football that year. Alabama and Michigan State, just Alabama had bigger, stronger, and faster players. And so I was just like, man, they gave them the walkthrough in that game. I felt so mad. I remember just being like so frustrated that they bumped up Michigan State over Oklahoma and gave Bama what I think is the more favorable matchup in the semifinal. I think if you would have given Clemson the opportunity to choose their opponent, they would have chosen Michigan State by far. Anyway,
I
just some
think that
thoughts
year's
on that.
the first year of the 3 Alabama Clemson finals that are to
Yeah.
come.
Also in that semifinal, Clemson versus Oklahoma, there is one of the best trick plays I've ever seen. They throw a fake punt to their defensive tackle Christian Wilkins on like a wheel route to convert a I think it's like a 4th and 9, and they get like 33 yards on this play. Like, number one, what a gutsy call, and 2, like Christian Wilkins was that kind of athlete that just like, oh yeah, we can get him out in space, we can throw a ball to him 20 yards downfield, and he's going to make a super athletic catch. That's another one if you want to look up a really cool play. That one's a good one. But the point of this question is Penn State wins in 2016. They got a shot in 2023. It seems like everyone's starting to buy stock on Penn State. What do
Yeah, I
y'all
mean,
think?
definitely when you look at the running backs they have, some of the hype around Drew Alar, and then the defense, people are talking about, hey, Manny Diaz is getting a job after this year because that defense is going to be ferocious. I'm excited to see what it is because he's losing a couple, I mean, not like tons, but some big contributors from the last year with
Joey
Porter
Porter
Jr.
Jr. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a big one to replace. But apparently this defense is going to be the real deal. That's at least what the scuttlebutt is. I haven't looked in, seen their spring game quite yet, but I mean, I'd love to see somebody start to knock on the door of Michigan and Ohio State, because it's just been up to them for the last little bit.
Yeah. Where do you think Diaz would get a job? Now I'm curious. Everyone says
I
that.
have
I'm
no
like,
idea.
really, what job is he getting? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I buy that. I think he's a great, even then, like, great coordinator might be a stretch for me. Like, he's been fired from a couple different coordinator jobs. Like, he's doing fine. He's not a great recruiter. Anyway, I digress. I think this might be my last question. Again, I can't see a preview of it, so I think there may be one or two more. Oh, this one's a fun one. Which two teams tied for the most first team all Pac-12 selections in 2022, this most recent year? This is a hard one.
This is hard because I don't know so many people on the offensive lines. Like, that makes up 5 people. And that's
if it helps, Brian, only one player from both of these teams was on the offensive line.
That didn't help, but that's
Okay.
excellent.
I'm gonna help a little bit because this one is tough.
I would think
I'm going like Utah and Oregon State. Like, I want to go random teams a little bit.
I'm with
Oregon
you on
State.
Utah.
See, Oregon State's defense was so nasty. It's like maybe they put 5 guys on the defense.
That's what I was thinking.
Utah, I don't like it because who do you have? You probably have on all of Utah. You maybe have Dalton Kincaid, but I'm not sure he played enough snaps. Frankly, you've got the cornerback whose name's escaping me right now, but Clark Phillips would have certainly been one. But I think Utah probably only had a couple on there, so I don't think it's Utah.
I don't think it's USC. Like,
Jordan Addison.
Caleb certainly is on there. Maybe Jordan Addison, but
I was looking at USC. They do have like a cornerback from last year that had one of the highest man-to-man PFF ratios or PFF ratings last year, which surprised me that they had somebody on that team because they got
that is shocking. Yeah,
like that.
UCLA,
I like Oregon.
I think it's like Charbonnet.
Yeah. What about UCLA?
I think they probably only have Charbonnet. I don't think Jake Bobo would have quite made the wide
Or
receivers. DTR wouldn't, because this is first team, right?
Yeah, so it would have been Williams.
Yeah, so it would have been Williams, or if it wasn't Williams, it'd be next, but it's probably Williams.
Callie, if they left the Heisman winner off the first team.
Can you imagine?
I
would.
I'm going to go Oregon State.
Something about Utah. You go Oregon State. I'm going to go Utah.
Knowing that Steve said only one of them played on the offensive line, I don't think it's Utah. I mean, Utah might have put a couple on the defensive line, but I can't think of. I mean, that maxes them at 4. I don't think they had anybody else. So, anyways, I'll go Oregon State and say it all sat in that rivalry.
I'm sticking to my answer.
What was your answer, Corey?
Utah, Oregon State.
I'm going to go Utah, Washington.
Okay. All right, you guys ready? The hint, they played a very close defensive struggle this past year.
USC and Oregon State.
It is, and I realized I accidentally left one off of each. They both had 5. So USC had Caleb Williams, Jordan Addison, Andrew Voorhees was the one on the offensive line, Tuli Tuipulotu, and then Mekhi Blackman. Let me make sure I'm getting that name right. Yeah, and I hope I'm saying that right. I think it's Mekhi. Oregon State had Damian Martinez, running back freshman. Man, that guy's good too. Omar Spates, now at LSU. I told you guys when he entered the transfer portal, I wanted him at Florida State. Anthony Gould, who is a return specialist. Jack Coletto, who is the all-purpose / special teams. That's that tight end that they kept lining up as the quarterback in the red zone. If you ever watched that, love that stuff. And then I also, for their team, forgot to put on. Oh, I am going to butcher this name. Rejjon Wright Senior. Or Rejjon Wright. Sorry, Senior is his class. Rejzohn. Rejjon Wright, maybe?
He's probably not listening.
What?
Said he's probably not listening. You're good.
Yeah. But yeah, 5 a pop. I also just thought this was like a fun one because like Oregon State gets both a return specialist and an all-purpose and special teams guy to sneak in there with 5 all first-team selections. Anyway, thought that one was fun. I think I've got one more for you, maybe. Nope. Sorry, there's a couple of these. Who led the Big Ten in rushing yards 2 of the last 3 seasons?
Is this a player or a team you're looking for?
Player. Sorry, yeah, player. A single player.
Would have been Corum. Oh, Corum or Braylon Allen? It's got to be Braylon Allen. What year is Braylon Allen? Do you guys know? Wisconsin running back. If you're not registering who that is,
I don't know. I think there's a shot this could be. I don't know who the running back at Minnesota is, but Minnesota was a top 10 team in rushing this last year too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It was Minnesota. There was a game where Minnesota played somebody else, and the two teams had like the best 2 rushing attacks in the nation at the time. And I'm like, that's where my mind would have gone. Can't remember. I want to say it was like, I actually have no idea. So
is Corum a sophomore though? Because the fact that Steven's saying 2 out of the last 3 clearly means he won it 3 years ago, and then probably this year or maybe the last 2 years. But he didn't win it the last 2 years.
Yeah.
What year's Corum? Do you remember?
I couldn't tell you. I know he was draft eligible and came back, but
I'm going for the Go First running back. I can't think of it. I don't know his name, but it's where I'm going.
I'm gonna go pick for him.
Okay. Probably would have done it 3 for 3 if not for an injury in the season opener in 2021 where they nearly rode the boat to an upset of Ohio State.
We don't know his name, but go ahead.
You don't know his name? Okay. Corey was on this one. It was really good. His name's Mohamed Ibrahim.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, if he doesn't injure himself in that game, like, he doesn't play the rest of the year. But he had already rushed for, I think, 136 yards, and that was like midway through the third quarter that he got hurt. So CJ Stroud was really struggling. That was his first start, and that was one of the first games. That was the Thursday night of opening weekend. And so it was like kind of novel. Was it Thursday night? I'm going to get that wrong. It may not have been Thursday. I think it was a midweek game. It may have been Friday even, because it was like one of those first games with crowds back in. And it was that was a really fun start. I think it was just like, man, I realized, I don't know about y'all, but I realized how much better the environment was, even watching on TV when there's an actual crowd in the stands. It was fun because North Carolina played at Virginia Tech that Thursday night. That's what's making me question when this was. It may have been that same night. I'm not sure. But that game was going on. Sam Howell gets upset by Virginia Tech, if you'll remember. Sam Howell. You know, that one's one where it's like when you get what you want but not what you need. Like, he got what he wanted. I'm not sure he got what he needed.
He is on the short list of people Cam Newton would back up, though. So,
what does that mean?
Cam Newton came out with a list of quarterbacks he would back up in the NFL, and Sam Howell somehow made that list.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. Sam Howell's on it.
Yeah,
I thought
who can't get a job is like, well, here are the 15 quarterbacks I'd be willing to back up. Like, my man, you should be lucky if you could even find any job at all. You haven't been able to for the last 18 months. And Sam Howell, I was like, oh, that's kind of weird name to be on that list.
Is Sam Howell starting?
I don't know.
Where is he even at? I don't know.
Is he Carolina?
Brian, Jamie, pull that up. He can't be at Carolina.
I'm probably just getting that confused because of where he played college football too. But Washington.
He's at the Commanders.
Oh, is he their starter? He could be.
Heineke has been, but I don't remember what happened to Heineke over the. Was he I don't remember what happened to him over the offseason. I feel like he was a free agent.
I don't know. As a Florida State fan, I am thrilled that we went 2-0 against Sam Howell. Like, thank goodness.
Sam Howell started the final game of the Commanders season this year, and he has a 1-0 record as a starting QB.
Good for him. All right. I think this is the last one. I know I've said this 1,000 times now, but
just stop
going. Oh, we have 2 more. Okay, now I know. When was the last time Clemson failed to win 10 games in a season, and we are excluding the 2020 COVID year for this?
I want to say they went like 8-5 in the middle of it. Like they'd won 10 games and then they had like a small regression and then went back. Or then went back to winning 10 games. But when was that? 2000. This is got to be around 12 or 11.
I'm going to go 13.
Maybe 13.
First year that they don't. Deshaun Watson's freshman year where they decide not to start him. But it might be the year before that.
13 is Taj Boyd loses only to Florida State and South Carolina because he was like an early Heisman contender when they knocked off Georgia in that like 3-5 game until FSU came and blew the doors in. But they got 10 wins. They got 10 regular season wins.
What's the year that they get blown out by Louisville?
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
Is that like 10?
Yeah, I want to say it's going to be 10 or 11.
I'll go 11.
I'm going to say that was the year. That was a decent bowl game, though, wasn't it? I'm going to go with 11. That's what I'm guessing.
I'm with Corey.
Okay, 11. Is that what were you, Mark?
Yeah, I was going 11.
Oh, you're on that. Did I do a hint? Oh, it was also their last losing season.
Oh, maybe it's further back then. I don't know. Could be 11. I'll stick with it.
Alrighty. Sorry, I'm trying to pull up their season record that year so that I can actually speak to it.
It can't be 11 because they would have already had Sammy Watkins. And I don't think they would have had him in a losing season. I'm going to back it up one more year and go to 10. I'm switching. I've done this poorly a couple times in this this
Are
episode,
you sure you want to do this, Brian? Your track record with switching your picks.
Are you warning me or are you just trolling me? Because
I'm just kidding.
I think I'm going to go 9.
You go 9? I'll go 10.
Okay, we got 9, 10, 11 now. Okay, it is 2010. Good job, Brian. So they went 6-7. They went 6-7 that year. They lost to Cam Newton-led Auburn in an overtime game where they actually led the eventual national champions 17-0 on the road. At Auburn, they were up 17-0 on who were going to be the undefeated champs that year and could not stick the landing. They lost to USF in the bowl game. They also lost on that late game winner from Dustin Hopkins, who hit a 55-yarder to beat them in Doak.
His redemption.
The week after he missed a field goal that would have beat North Carolina. A little bit more detail from that year. So they lose 27-24 in overtime at Auburn, and they missed a field goal in overtime that would have sent it to a second overtime. They lose the next week. I think they let Auburn beat them twice because they lost to the Hurricanes, who weren't any good, but they won that one nonetheless. Lost at Boston College 16-10. Lost at North Carolina. Again, I'm not going in order. Lost at South Carolina, home against South Carolina 29-7, and lost by 5 to the South Florida Bulls in the Meineke Car Care Bowl.
Yeah,
I think Dabo was close to getting the axe there.
South Carolina game used to be penciled in as a loss every year with Dabo, and then he flipped the script on it.
Do you remember like the kids that trolled him? Like they used to like count the number of consecutive wins, and like these two kids in South Carolina got this picture with Dabo. He's got his arms around them, and they're flashing the 4 in a row that he doesn't see because they're in front of him. That was one of like the best troll jobs I've ever seen. Just like, like that's a pretty funny photo. I should have put that in here. I didn't have time to. You notice the photos started to get less and less as I was like, I got to get this all put together. Okay, one last one, and this is the throwback. Sorry, I got to switch.
Time for a coaching tree question.
Who won the Heisman Trophy in 2016?
Oh, this is Lamar Jackson.
I'm going to clue in the audience on why this is funny, because last time when we did trivia, one of my questions was, of the last 10 Heisman Trophy winners, like, which conference has the most of those? And they were going through this, and they had every single one of them but Lamar Jackson, and they just couldn't think of him. And they're like, it's got to be someone from, I think you were just like, who played in the playoff this year? And it was like, he's one that just flies under the radar because he has such a great year, but their team lost a couple of games still. And, it's just a hard question, and they couldn't find him. So the answer is, yeah, there's the hint. Hope you do better than last time. Sorry,
The worst part is I was thinking, like, is that Derrick Henry's year? Like,
all right. Also, I noticed this picture on someone's Twitter the other day. I don't think I ever saw this in real time, but the Samuel L. Jackson that they're sitting next to each other on the bench. For our listeners, go to the YouTube version of this and see this photo, or you can just Google Louisville Samuel L. Jackson, and you'll see it's two of their players sitting next to each other on the bench. Lamar Jackson and someone with the last name of Samuel. I don't know that player off the top of my head, but just kind of one of those funny things where two names combine to make something. Anyway, that does conclude our trivia night. Thank you for playing. Hopefully this was palatable. Hopefully it was fun for our listeners to do some of this and think it through. I think it was maybe a little bit more balanced on the questions about coaches, questions about players and teams as well. So I don't have anything else. I don't know if you guys do. We'll start rolling out this. Again, just a reminder to those, if you've listened to this far, you're, number one, a hero, and two, it's probably just the four of us. But again, we're starting to introduce a little bit more content on our YouTube page. So this will be on there along with some shorts with the more difficult trivia questions. And I think those trivia questions are both fun in that they're challenging, but also that they're things that are a little bit that kind of wild, things that's like, oh man, I wouldn't have realized that that's the case. So I would encourage you all to check that out in the coming days as those get posted. So with that, we'll sign off. Thanks so much. This has been Court, Mark, Brian, and I'm your host, Steve, for the CFB Paint podcast. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.